The South China Sea, a vital artery for global trade and a region rich in oil, gas, and fisheries, is a focal point of geopolitical tension due to overlapping territorial claims by China, the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Taiwan. China's expansive claim, embodied by the 9-dash line, covers nearly the entire sea, a stance rejected by a 2016 Permanent Court of Arbitration ruling under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS. Despite this, China has intensified its presence through militarization and assertive actions, raising concerns about the potential for conflict. This report examines the current state of tensions, China's position, regional dynamics, and the likelihood of war. The South China Sea is a strategic waterway through which nearly a quarter of global maritime trade flows, with estimated reserves of 11 billion barrels of oil and 190 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. The dispute centers on territorial claims over islands, reefs, and waters, particularly the Spratlys and Paracels Islands. China's 9-dash line, first articulated by the nationalist government in 1947, asserts historical sovereignty, a claim contested by other nations whose exclusive economic zones, EEZs, overlap with China's assertions. The 2016 tribunal ruling favored the Philippines, declaring China's claims legally baseless, but Beijing rejected the decision, continuing to assert control through military and Coast Guard activities. Tensions have escalated due to several high-profile incidents. In June 2023, a Chinese vessel collided with a Philippine supply ship near the Second Thomas Shoal, with both sides blaming each other. The Chinese Coast Guard has employed aggressive tactics, including water cannons and military-grade lasers, against Philippine resupply missions since 2023. A notable incident involved a Chinese helicopter coming within 10 feet of a Philippine plane, further raising alarms. Additionally, China's increased military activities near Indonesia's Natuna Islands and a South Korean destroyer's entry into disputed waters have sparked diplomatic friction. These incidents highlight the potential for miscalculation in a crowded and militarized region. China maintains that the South China Sea, including the Xisha, Paracel, Nansha, Spratlys, Zhongsha, and Dongxia archipelagos, is an indivisible part of its historical territory. Beijing traces its claims to ancient dynasties, asserting continuous control through exploration, naming, and administration. China has militarized features like Woody Island, deploying fighter jets, cruise missiles, and radar systems, enhancing its strategic dominance. However, Chinese officials, including Foreign Minister Wang Yi, advocate for resolving disputes through bilateral negotiations and joint resource development, as seen in discussions at the 2012 ASEAN-China Senior Officials Meeting. China's rejection of international arbitration and its insistence on bilateral talks reflect a strategy to maintain control while avoiding escalation. The Philippines, under President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., has shifted from a conciliatory approach to a more assertive stance, rejecting China's claims and strengthening ties with the United States, which reaffirmed its mutual defense treaty obligations in March 2024. Japan has bolstered regional security by exporting destroyers to the Philippines and Vietnam, aiming to counter China's aggression. The U.S. conducts freedom of navigation operations to challenge China's claims, a practice that has led to tensions but not direct conflict. Other claimants, like Vietnam and Malaysia, pursue joint development agreements to manage disputes peacefully, reflecting ASEAN's broader goal of preventing armed conflict. Despite provocative actions, diplomatic efforts suggest a preference for de-escalation. In July 2024, China and the Philippines reached a tentative agreement to manage tensions at a South China Sea flashpoint, indicating a willingness to negotiate. China's relations with the Philippines have warmed since the 2016 ruling, and ASEAN-led initiatives, such as Thailand's hosting of talks, aim to foster peaceful resolutions. These efforts, combined with China's domestic focus on economic recovery and political stability under President Xi Jinping, reduce the immediate likelihood of war. The South China Sea remains a volatile region with significant risks of escalation. The presence of militarized features, frequent naval and air encounters, and the involvement of external powers like the U.S. and Japan create a complex and crowded theater. A miscalculation, such as an unintended collision or misinterpreted military maneuver, could spiral into a broader conflict. The SS defense commitments to the Philippines and China's growing military capabilities heighten these risks. However, several factors mitigate the likelihood of war in the near term. China's leadership is preoccupied with domestic challenges, including economic stagnation, and has shown a desire to ease tensions with the U.S. Diplomatic channels, such as the China-Philippines deal and ASEAN initiatives, remain active. Wargame exercises by the Center for Strategic and International Studies suggest that the costs of conflict would be high for all parties, further deterring escalation. The South China Sea's strategic importance cannot be overstated. It facilitates $5 trillion in annual trade and holds significant energy resources, making it a critical region for global economic stability. The following table summarizes the key stakes and claimants. While the South China Sea remains a hotspot of geopolitical tension, the immediate likelihood of war appears low. China's assertive actions, including militarization and aggressive Coast Guard tactics, have heightened tensions, but its preference for bilateral diplomacy and domestic priorities suggest restraint. The Philippines and other claimants, supported by allies like the U.S. and Japan, are pushing back, but also engaging in diplomatic efforts to manage disputes. The risk of miscalculation persists, given the crowded and militarized nature of the region, but active diplomatic channels and the high costs of conflict make war unlikely in the near term. Continued vigilance, adherence to international law, and robust diplomacy are essential to prevent escalation and maintain stability in this critical region.